So it's been about nearly 4 months since the release of Flight Simulator 2024, and we now have our first major sim update. Sim Update 1 to be specific. It was recently released and brings a ton of bug fixes, but does it fix the sim enough to warrant a purchase? Unfortunately, no, and I'll explain why throughout the video. Now, a quick disclaimer, I have been part of the beta, so I've already had the majority of the bug fixes and have had a general idea of where the sim was heading before the full release. Now, let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's start off with the marketplace. While it is light on content right now, I have to say that it's showing some real promise here. I love the new rating system where instead of it just being a broad, 5 out of 5 star rating system, you can actually rate specific things about the product, such as its realism, visual quality, and technical quality. And the fact that we'll have the option to rent or do free trial versions of some of these products or planes or whatever, although that does depend on what the developer wants to do, we could be looking at something really special here. Okay, now let's move on to performance. Right away, the one thing I can say that I noticed is that the loading screen getting into the sim is dramatically faster. Before I participated in the beta, I would be waiting nearly 3 minutes to get into the sim, and I won't lie, it kept me from wanting to play the game at times. But now I can get in within a little bit over a minute. Now, as for the performance of the sim itself, generally in both career mode and free flight, it's good. I ran into no crashes so far, and frame rate is usually stable. However, when flying at large, high-density airports, the game can literally crap itself. The stuttering gets to the point of being completely unplayable. Azobo has said they are working on this, but I hate to be this guy, but this issue needs to climb up a few steps on the priority list. This is the main reason why I refuse to fly planes like the AnyBuilds A350 in 2024, because it's mostly used to fly in large airports. It's kind of hard to do that when Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 turns into Microsoft PowerPoint Simulator 2024. Unfortunately, it's not just performance issues. There are still bugs that I'm seeing still since the game launched. While they're not all game-breaking, they can be frustrating to deal with. I mentioned in my review for Flight Simulator 2024 that some of the walk-around features for some of the planes have broken elevators and rudders that you can't move all the way, and that is still the case here. This seems like such a simple fix, and I have no idea why it's still a thing. Not a big deal for free flight, but could be very problematic in career since wear and tear is actually simulated. Another bug I've noticed, and again, not game-breaking, but very irritating. When I try to start a motor glider flight in a parking area, it'll always spawn me on the active runway. And yes, I chose autonomous launch in the options, and it still didn't work. Now, while I've never flown this next plane in free flight, and I am by no means an expert on it, the 737 MAX feels so damn unstable, and the trim is so insanely oversensitive. It's pretty much for those reasons alone why I don't even bother doing the airline missions in career mode. Lastly, the Cessna Caravan autopilot on nav mode just wobbles all over the place. Now, apparently this is an issue that is under investigation, but no word on when it'll be fixed. Now, I know there may be some people out there thinking I'm just here to complain and moan, and I've been seeing a lot of that. But guys, I'm not trying to find these bugs on purpose. They just keep happening. And the worst part is, I'm not done with my ranting. I still have to talk about the still busted career mode. Let's start with the most annoying aspect, ATC. And no, I'm not talking about you communicating with NPCs during firefighting or agricultural missions. I'm talking about the built-in ATC that hasn't had the best reputation going as far back as Flight Sim 2020. I honestly wish ATC was optional in career mode like it is in free flight, and I understand it would kind of break immersion if you didn't do that, but the the point is, it already breaks immersion with its constant bugs. The most common one, at least for me, is after you land, very rarely can I announce taxi to parking. Most of the time, I get points deducted because it won't acknowledge my transmissions when I try to press enter or the button that's assigned to my yoke. And on one occasion, I couldn't even acknowledge a taxi to runway call out. Another thing that gets in the way when it comes to ATC is when you have to descend. Sometimes you'll have the option to request to decrease your cruising altitude, and sometimes you won't. This can really screw up your approaches, so I try my best to tell ATC to stick it and go rogue. Unfortunately, it's not just ATC that hampers career mode. There are still a load of visual and sometimes game-breaking bugs. I've actually been running into more visual bugs since the full update came out, and it happens far too frequently, as you can see here. As for the game-breaking bugs, let's start with airline missions. I've honestly given up on these, because you just don't know what'll happen. It can either be performance issues when it starts you at a dense airport, or it could be a jetway connecting to the right side door causing the airplane to crash. What the heck? Also on one mission, for some reason when I was taking off in the Cessna Caravan, my engine just quit on me. Now I know wear and tear is simulated in the game, but this is the big problem. I can't freaking tell what's a bug and what's an actual feature. So obviously I crashed. Alright, fine, let's just spawn back on the runway or so. Yeah, I got stuck in an infinite loading screen. On another flight, when I was flying the PC-24 on a cargo mission, the game refused to complete the mission for me after I landed. In fact, it didn't even know I actually landed. I don't know if this was caused by me selecting to request an IFR clearance for instrument FP, but the problem is that it still sent me to the same airport. I did this because I wanted to see if I could get the option to decrease my cruising altitude because it wasn't showing up. Thankfully, it did show up after that. So I landed and had to abort the mission and lose all my progress. Now, most of the time, I just increase the sim rate to get through the mission faster, but just imagine if I did this all in real time. Yeah, I probably have a hole in my monitor right now. Lastly, and this was a mission I was actually looking forward to, and that was the LA aerial firefighting mission. This is almost impossible to beat because of its insane difficulty. You're pretty much required to scoop a full tank, which is fine, but good luck trying to gain any significant altitude. I was able to do a few bombing runs, but the problem is that you need significant engine power to pull it off. And since wear and tear is simulated, you'll most likely overstress and kill the engines. I found out that crashing the plane can kind of reset things back to normal, but when my engine quit a second time and I tried to crash to reset it again, I got a mission failure.
This is not a landing spot, Captain.
So I just gave up and just said, this needs some serious tweaking. Now, don't get me wrong. I love a challenge, especially in aviation. In fact, that's my favorite part about aviation. But something just doesn't seem right here, especially for an introductory mission that is required to unlock the plane for career mode. So, those are my overall thoughts for Sim Update 1. While it does fix a good chunk of issues, I'm sorry, but this game is still a long ways away from being where it should be, let alone me giving it a recommendation. If you're still thinking about buying Flight Simulator 2024, I'd still say save your money. It just isn't in a polished state, and it may take several large updates for it to be even remotely worth the purchase. Now, I understand I might be coming off a little bit hypocritical here because I still play the game a lot, but I mainly only use it for general aviation. I don't even bother with airline flights because of the inconsistent performance issues, so I usually just go back to 2020 for that. Then there's other aspects of the sim that just aren't functional, such as the career mode. So, how about all of you? What are your overall thoughts on Sim Update 1? Have you been having a smoother experience than me? And do you think the game is worth buying now? Let me know in those comments below. And be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. And until next time, guys, peace out and happy flying.